Welcome to the WTF1 Fantasy F1 Show, where we talk about our fantasy league and our favourite picks heading into this time around the Japanese Grand Prix. As always, I'm joined by Amber. Now, each week we've had a guest that's been more of a content creator, used to kind of talking about F1. This time around, we've got someone who's not only a content creator, but also a little bit of a racing driver as well. So we're going to get even more expert analysis because we're joined by the amazing Cameron Das. Welcome.
Hey guys.
How are you doing? How's the season been for you so far?
Oh, it's been treacherous. It's been really bad. I've done Grid Rival 3 years in a row now, and the first season I won. Second season, I was in the top 10%, and then this one, oh my god, there's been a lot of mistakes.
We've got a little bit of a battle going on between the three of us because I'm looking at the standings right now. Amber, you're 12th in the Golden Helmet League.
I'm 13th.
And Cam, you 14th. Are 14th. So we're all very close together, separated by 12 points. But we are only 3 races in. How has it been going for your team? Who's been in your team so far? Have you done any changes across the season in those first 3 races?
Yeah, it's not been going great. You know, in the beginning, it's weird because I'm looking back to my original choices, and I'm just thinking there wasn't a whole lot of logic to this, even though I thought I did put some logic into it. So my original lineup was Verstappen, Hamilton, Stroll, Bottas, Sargent, and Mercedes as my team. Yeah, it's weird because I had Hamilton in there, and I was pretty sure he wasn't going to do well. I don't know. There's something about just like from my experience and like switching between teams and stuff, if you announce you're going to leave a team before you've actually left, like you just typically don't do well, whether it's the driver maybe not putting in the same amount of effort or the team doesn't put the same amount of effort, but just something it usually doesn't go right. But for some reason, I still kept Hamilton, and that has really not done me well.
So no logic there whatsoever. Yeah. You thought Hamilton's really not going to do well at all. But what I'm going to do is spice it up. I'm going to pick Hamilton anyway.
It probably came down to the money. I think that's generally how like a lot of the picks come. It's like, let me just fit as many drivers in with the budget I have and see what happens.
The thing is, on paper, it sounds like a really strong team. You've got Verstappen in there, you've got Hamilton in there, you've got Mercedes in there. But the difference, I suppose, between Grid Rival and the normal F1 fantasy is there's so many more criteria in this one that it's not just a case of, okay, Max and Red Bull at the top, I can just put them in my team, keep them in there for the whole season, have a back marker who's going to gain positions, keep them for the season, and then just try and be smart with who you're picking in the middle.
I really looked into this because I was looking at all of our teams. I was like, where are we going wrong? I started to look at other people's teams. I thought, okay, what have they done? And it was interesting, actually, Cam, because I looked that you picked Lance Stroll as your star driver, and he got you 302 points. Whereas I've had, Leclerc or Verstappen only really getting me, 152 or 160, maybe 200 max. They weren't actually getting me lots and lots of points. So Lance Stroll, although he gets a lot of criticism, and he has done a little bit wishy-washy, I'd say, the first few races, he's actually doing really well in the points.
Going into Japan, Cam, have you been changing your team about, or are we keeping it similar?
Changing a couple of small things. We talk about how Stroll might be actually a pretty decent pick. Well, he's gone. Yeah.
Oh, my heart just dropped.
But I replaced him with Ocon. I think the only reason I did that, and it's only for 2 races, is because he's had a couple of shockers recently, and I think he lost 2 million last race. So the strategy I had the first season I did Grid Rival that ultimately won me my league was to just buy low, sell high. I didn't even care about points until sort of like last third of the season. I just cared about trying to maximize dollars. Now, whether or not I'm catching a falling knife and Ocon's gonna keep falling down the order, I don't know. I don't think so. But yeah, replacing Stroll with Ocon, and then the second thing, I am spending over $500,000 to get rid of Hamilton and replace him with Russell. I really didn't expect there to be such a discrepancy, but I need those, teammate points. I need Russell to be, he's consistently beating Hamilton, so it just makes sense.
Yeah, it seems like some very smart moves between those 2 choices. I think, Hamilton one out for Russell, I definitely agree with. I think the Ocon one could be, it's one of those that you hope that Alpine kind of start to pick things up, but I'm worrying that Alpine are going to very much stay in the mud at the bottom of the standings. And whilst Ocon is the driver who is outperforming his teammates, you're going to get those bonus points there. That's going to be great. then you can, but I just feel like because they're at the bottom, they're still just going to be dropping in value and value and value. So it could be a better choice to wait until they are, fully at the bottom of the standings and how much they are in terms of money wise, then put them in. And then, of course, you're going to get the points for beating his teammate. And then also, if anybody else retires from the race and he keeps it clean, overtaking position points as well.
Well, if you make Ocon your star driver as well, I think that's always the best option. If you go for drivers that, are a little bit lower, you might as well just try and get double points. You don't have Stroll anymore, which he is the best one to go for, clearly, as your star driver. So,
who would have thought that?
It's a little bit risky, Ocon, but I don't know. If you're wise with it, then maybe you can make it work for you. But 100% I agree. Having Hamilton out and swapping George Russell in is the best thing if you're going to have the Mercedes drivers.
Yeah, Hamilton's had just a bit of a slow start this season, and I think you're right in saying that George Russell's had the more consistent results. And, I hear what you're saying as well. There's that sort of tinfoil hat goes on. It's like, is the team fully favouring George now and not really paying much attention to Lewis? So we've got George in the team. We've got Ocon in the team. Verstappen's still in the team, correct? Who are the other two drivers? The Mercedes is your other team, is the actual constructor, isn't it?
Yeah, Mercedes is the team. And then I've got Bottas and Magnussen in, who, the Haas's have been great, right? Like they've actually been steadily improving. They've been really undervalued in the beginning of the season. Now, whether or not they survive kind of the high downforce tracks we're going to now is another question. The lower budget teams, they tend to struggle with that. But Magnussen's made me quite a bit of money so far.
Yeah, you make a good point there with the high downforce tracks, because Haas have been notorious this season for being really slippery in a straight line. Like that teams have been saying that they've been struggling to sort of get past them in the straights, and then they just kind of hold them up in the corners. So that could be a factor that lets Haas down potentially this weekend at Japan.
Highly possible, yeah. I mean, I haven't been keeping up with all the technical stuff this year, but it's kind of like Williams was back in like 2015-16. Like they were just ridiculous down the straights. Didn't have a ton of downforce, but it still allowed them to kind of always be like that third, fourth place team. Obviously it all went downhill after that, but yeah, straight line definitely can make a big difference over the course of the season. But the next two races, it's risky to keep them, I think.
Let's talk a little bit about the Japanese Grand Prix then, and let's get our predictions for this weekend. Obviously, it's a bit of a different weekend and potential rain on the card. So our first wet race of the season. But Amber, give me a top three. What is your podium prediction for this weekend?
So I don't know if we have to bring in, the last races of the Japanese Grand Prix because they've been crazy and chaotic. So can you really go off that? So I just think it's Max ultimately. I think he's going to win unless we see a DNF, unless we see something go wrong with that car. I'm just putting Max wins, and especially if it's wet conditions, he's great in the wet. So I just think it's a win for Max. Let's just lock that off. Second, Perez has a little bit of trouble. If anything happens like last year, then potentially there's a bit of trouble for him. So I'm probably going to go out on a whim and say Sainz second and Perez third. And I'm just hoping for that. Maybe that's not going to happen. Maybe it's super unrealistic. But if something goes wrong and Perez, doesn't qualify well, maybe the Ferraris can catch up. So that's my podium predictions.
What about you, Cameron? Who's your top three for this weekend's Japanese Grand Prix?
I think Max is the safe bet for the win. Quick in the wet, a good car with high downforce. So yeah, I mean, if it's definitely wet, I think Max is going to win it. Then also, if it's wet, I think Lando is going to be very, very, very quick. He was always the reference we used in F3. Like if it was raining and we had 30 minutes before quali, we were always whipping out Lando's onboard from the year previous. And then third, I think Sainz is on form. And as long as they have a car for Suzuka, then I think he's one to watch out for.
Yeah, I think some very, very strong picks there. I'm being selfish, and I'm going to say Max is going to win because it's going to help my fantasy and hopefully raise his price back up because I need it before I get rid of him. But then if we be realistic, I think Perez, yeah, he maybe is starting to struggle now with the car. You could be right there, but maybe that consistency is going to come back with him. But I'm going to stick with my guns with Perez. I'm going to stay. Okay, do you know what? He's going to still be strong. He's going to be P2. And then P3, Yeah, I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna go with Lando Norris on that one. I think it could be very strong. I think the McLaren's gonna be a very strong car over the Ferrari this weekend, and as you say, usually does well in the rain. Well, there we go. Those are our top 3 picks for the Japanese Grand Prix. Thank you very much, Cameron, once again for joining us on this week's WTF1 Fantasy F1 Show. And congratulations at home to Sunha, who's currently winning our WTF1 League at the moment. So a big round of applause to you. Absolutely smashing it. Let us know in the comment section who are in your fantasy teams and how well you are doing so far. But thank you very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.